Thank you. I'm Tru Eastman, and I am here to talk to you about a few things with regard to the unthinkable word witchcraft, magic, Wicca, lightworking, angels, ritual, and all that fun stuff in between. So, my path has been about magic ever since I was a small child. And I have been seeking for the truth for myself ever since this high, and was always saying my favorite question was why? Why? My mother would say, because I said so. That wasn't good enough for me, and it's still not good enough for me. So, some of the things that have been important in my life have been to speak from a place of truth. My parents did not name me Tru, but Spirit did, through a meditation about 6 years ago. And I kept my given birth name of Mindi as my middle name to honor my parents, right? And that's honoring myself as well. But the name that I go by now is Tru, and it's been legally changed, and here I am. So, speaking truth, hearing truth, receiving truth, knowing truth, that's my path. I look for all things that are constant. And for me, I find them in magic. And I am a high priestess, I am a shaman, and I do a lot of work with people's shadows. Now, the shadows are those places that keep us stuck and bound into continual repeat patterns of self-sabotage, sadness, depression, dysfunctional relationships. I've been there. So I work with the shadows, and I'm a shadow healer. So with that, I want to give you a little history. The history that goes back thousands of years, hundreds of years, into, I didn't really mean thousands, I meant hundreds, back into the early, 1300s, 1200s, and that type of thing. There was a time that predates all of the constructs and conformities that we have now. It was without judgment in the degree that we have it in our world today. The place that this came from was the time when people gathered together as a tribe, when they were a village, when working for the nature system, knowing when to plant, knowing when to harvest, knowing when to hunt, and knowing when to rest was part of a lifestyle. That lifestyle made a difference with me knowing my neighbor and my neighbor knowing me, and we were all a community because it worked for all of us to be together and to look out for each other. And at that time, the people of that time, they used the stars. They used the planting and the earth and the communion with the earth. They honored all the divinity in all things. There was not separation. Everything had God and Goddess in it. Everything had the connection, and they were part with it. So then this funny thing happened, and it's really not so funny. It's actually quite serious. A king or two decided that they wanted power and control over the people. So they started this funny thing where they would raise armies together to try and convince the people that what they knew inside naturally and what they were connected to was unreal. And that if they continued to practice that way, they would not only lose their lives, but they would lose their eternal soul. That's pretty powerful, right? You start teaching people from an early state that they no longer are connected with the divine, but that if you want to talk to a God, because now it became one single God, not God and Goddess in all things, that one singular had to go through the system. You couldn't talk to them through the trees. You couldn't talk to them through the plants and nature, the sun and the sky and the moon. You now had to talk to them through a man. And the man said, this is the way. And over time, we started to lose our connection to our own divine self. The joy within us. Look at where our world is at today. Our joy is so smushed. It's become not okay to be joyous. Everybody wants it. We desire it in our heart. But somewhere along the way, it's gotten lost. And losing that joy is part of what happened eons ago, many, many years ago. The interesting thing that happened was they took what was a path called the wise one. The wise one literally means someone who does not judge anything without understanding it, who is not making condemnation on things that they know nothing about and holding it against their neighbor. That's the path of Wicca, W-I-C-C-A. When the kings came along and decided that they wanted power and control over the people, they decided to do a propaganda. And that propaganda was to change the spelling from Wicca, W-I-C-C-A, to witch, W-I-T-C-H, with a capital W. And on top of that, there came with a meaning. A witch is a person who is a consort with the devil. Now you've gone from being truth-filled and full of nature to consorting with a what? Because they made up this idea of what a devil is really about. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that darkness doesn't exist in our world. We see darkness every day. We see it happen when people kill each other and harm each other and take, and they're on the it's all about me, not about you. We see the darkness, and we're the creators and the perpetuators of that darkness. And it started somewhere in our DNA a long time ago. And it's been passed on and passed on and passed on. So with this idea, bouncing back to those kings, there were a couple of priests. These priests decided that they were going to find the devil inside of every woman, and usually it was the women that they went after first. And inside of every woman, there was a particular spot that they spent time in torturing women, developing a book on this. It is called the Malleus Maleficarum, the book of torture, how to torture a witch. That's what it basically comes down to. So when you torture something, you build, design, whatever, constructs of things to literally pull someone apart. Because you're looking for that thing inside of them that doesn't exist. So you keep searching, and you keep digging, and you keep torturing, and you keep killing. And you keep taking the land, and you keep reaping from the people, raping the land, raping the people. And the people get scared, and they start to turn against each other for the sake of their own survival. Can we blame them? I certainly cannot blame them. If you believe in reincarnation, maybe we were all there once. Maybe we've already had this path, and maybe now we're here to heal it. So, the kings started an idea that if in fact you felt the divine nature within you, and you even gathered flowers, you could be burned at the stake, you could be drowned. And if you did survive a drowning, by the way, they would proclaim that you were innocent. Excuse me, they would proclaim that you were a witch, and so they would burn you. If you didn't survive the drowning, they would say, oh, she was innocent, or he was innocent, that mother, that father, that child. And so we began to fear our own right to have joy. It becomes selfish in our community and even in our understanding today that if you love self and you think highly of the divine that has been gifted through you in your spirit, that you're selfish. Now wait a second. Think that through for a minute. Is that true for anyone in here? Do you feel selfish when you consider your needs? Because we've also been taught by the light workers that if we don't fill our own bucket, then we are empty and we cannot pull another up. When we're on an airplane and the air mask drops down, they don't say feed your neighbor the air first and then survive later. They say put your mask on and help the person next to you. So going along with the idea that to be in a space of self-care, self-love, divine connection with all of nature, the sun, the moon, the sky, the dirt, the stones, the trees, the animals, and each other, humanity. That is not wrong. That is so right. That is so filled with love and light. To worry first about ourselves, not worry, that's not really what I meant. To take care of ourselves and then to extend that love to another. Because the truth of the matter is, if you fear your own magic, then that's really saying that you fear your own personal power and your responsibility for others in this world. Your responsibility for nature and for the world becoming the better place, the place of enlightenment that we all dream of having. And yet what happens, we go unconscious and we stop being concerned about people in Iraq or people in Japan or people in Korea, because who knows why. There's a gazillion reasons, but they're lies. The truth is, if all the people stood in our light, stood in our power, we're not afraid of our magic. We were not afraid to gather herbs and to learn how to solarize a tincture through the water in a glass bottle, and to take that tincture to enhance the vibration inside of our own bodies. This is part of what I study on my wise path of being a witch. I stand in front of a full moon, and I give thanks to the maiden of the moon. And I give thanks to the maiden of the earth. And I give thanks to the maiden of the underworld, the crone of the underworld. Because we are about creation, destruction, and resurrection. Every day of our lives, we create by what we speak. I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. Wow, I've gone through my things a little faster. So, the great Master Jesus, he said, know thyself. He also said, humans are that they have joy. Now, I changed the word to humans because saying man has become a sore spot in the world today. But you get the idea. So just following the understanding that we've had many great masters. They've had messages. They've come before us. And we get to hear those things. But do we ingest and do we bring them into who we are? That's only each one of us' responsibility and choice. Because really we always have choice to live however we want to live. So on the point of your birth, imagine this. This is some of the things. I'm going to talk about just a tiny bit of some of the pathways of magic, some of the pathways of the witch. And you'll find that they are the pathways of the psychic and the astrologer and the numerologist and the light worker and so on, and the shaman. So imagine at this time of your birth, in that moment, the cosmos up above, there were the planets, there were the celestials. That's what they call the planets, the celestials. There were some wise people who mapped out and realized that these gathering of celestials, of stars, they became zodiac signs. And these planets move through these zodiac signs. And we know the basics, you know, each month that you're born and they rotate through the zodiac signs. But how many times do we go deeper? Do we know if we're air, earth, water, or fire? Do we know what our moon sign is? Do we know what the sun sign is? These are things that can be found out about you, and they become a map to you. Because in that moment that you were born, the place on earth where you were born, the ascended moon coming up at that time, what zodiac sign that was in, it creates a pattern for you to learn more about who you are. And following that pattern, that God print, that blueprint of your soul for this lifetime incarnation, it gives you answers to your own mystery, and it gives you depth if you choose to take the path of learning and find it. So the next place is numerology, the place where your parents decided, most of the time your parents decided, what your name was going to be. And every letter in the alphabet has a number 1 through 9 that it gets broken down into. And that place of numerology has a vibratory number that when you take all the letters and you convert them to numbers, and then you total it to a single digit in the very end, becomes the vibration of the number that is your name. There can also be done for your birth date, your personal day, your personal year. I mean, it's expansive. But the interesting thing is that there's information there for you to glean about who you are. I don't know about you. Does anybody here want to know who they are? I want to know who I am. I want to know so many of the mysteries. That studying the mysteries is definitely the reason that I do all that I do. So the next thing that affects all of us are the 7 Hermetic principles. Only named Hermetic principles because Hermes is the one who put these down. But really, they're 7 spiritual laws. And none of us get to escape the 7 spiritual laws. So something about 7. My sisters and I, we have a company that's called Soul Spark 7. And Soul Spark is exactly what it's about. The individual soul waking up, sparking a path for you into your life and your direction of where you want to be and what you want to express yourself as. The 7s happen to be, because there are so many 7s out there, that correlate with our chakra centers. So we have the 7 Hermetic principles, or 7 spiritual laws, is the same. You have the 7 rainbow colors. You have the 7 musical notes. The list goes on. But it all ties together in a very interesting way. And taking the time to understand each of those things will lead you to a direction in your life, once again, that exposes more about who you are. So with the 7 Hermetics, we have mentalism. So thoughts are things. How many of you have heard thoughts are things? So do you believe that the power of a single thought can turn into something manifested out there? I do too. And I've experienced it. And there are times that I have had the experience where I manifest something much quicker, and sometimes it takes longer to actually manifest. The interesting thing, when it manifested fast, it was usually a fear, right? Because I had no way of getting in front of myself. I wasn't trying to stop that. It was a quick thought. It had emotion behind it, and I didn't stop it. And then I was like, see, I knew that was going to happen. Well, that was in my younger years, because now when those fears come up, I say cancel, delete, okay? I don't want that to be part of my creation. I want to create from a space of consciousness, a space of my reality and truth for me, as opposed to what I don't want in my life. I want to create what I do want in my life. Most of us spend a lot of time worrying about the things we don't want to have happen. Have you, any of you ever done that? Right? We're kind of brought up to do that, accidentally, of course, because nobody would teach their children to create what you don't want in your life. It's just because we haven't awoken to it. And sometimes maybe our parents weren't aware of that either. Some of us were lucky who had conscious parenting, and others, we had to be the one to wake up and be the chain breaker for our children. And some of us are still on the path, and our children are actually the one who are waking us up to the idea. So correspondence. Thoughts and images, this is the principle of correspondence. Thoughts and images will manifest and mirror its likeness in the external. So if thoughts are things, and now we correspond with as above, so below. And the mirror image of what we are creating actually becomes our external experience. Again, I have to say, would we want to have more love and more light in the world? And we would want to have more connection with real people as opposed to just technology? Like where we actually have an influence on something. The energy that's in this beautiful girl sitting on the front row. I would like to connect with her, not my computer screen, right? Vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves. Everything vibrates. Even right out to the solar system, every smallest atom and molecule that there is, it's always moving. Even the idea of these solid chairs, they're not so solid if you got into the molecular structure of them. And it's just the rate of vibration that connects together that becomes the form of the thing that it creates. Out into our The solar systems and the multiple solar systems, very much the same idea. Polarities. The polarity is dual in nature. Everything has its pair of opposites. All things, all truths are but a half-truth. Because what is true for one end of the spectrum, on the other end of the spectrum is the other truth. For an example, love and hate are on the same spectrum. On one end, you have the vibration of love. And obviously, I would have to say it has a faster, higher vibration. It can create from this space. On the other end of the spectrum, you have hate. Hatred creates as well. Hatred breeds more hatred. Love breeds more love. Rhythm. Everything flows in and flows out. Everything has its tide. Everything has its season. What goes up comes back down. That's all the part of the rhythm. Then, whoops, there we go. Cause and effect. Everything happens for a reason. Now, one of the things that I read on this with cause and effect, and that I really do feel this, is because our emotional bodies have a tendency to want to run the show. The emotional body is the one part of you that literally creates the magic in your life. When you tap emotion into anything, you get motion, you get movement. So that's why fear is such a powerful unconscious creator, because most of the time fear has a level of emotion attached to it that we can't stop sometimes, that we can't control. And fear is part of hatred. In my understanding and my world that I operate from, there are two emotions. There is love and there is fear. Anything that doesn't look like love gets put over into the category of fear. So scarcity, depression, sadness, hatred. These are all examples of fear. Love, self-awareness, joy, happiness, doing for others from a joyful state, not from a state of, I have to do this state. So the cause and effect. We can be the master of our emotions and of our lives and of our words and of our creations. Or we will be the slave to our emotions, to the circumstances that take place in our lives, to the things that we speak, because we're speaking from a place of disempowerment, a place of fear, a place that is unconscious. So, you can decide right now, do you want to be the master or do you want to be the slave in your own life? Simple decision for me, not always a simple carry through, and I recognize that. Because we all have shadows in our lives or patterns that deserve disruption, that deserve to be cleared, the light shone upon them. And to be able to come from a space of love and light and to tackle the hardness of a relationship. You know, for me personally, my husband always says, am I going to show up at one of your events and hear you talking about our relationship? Maybe. That's where we learn from, right? We learn from the relationships that are in our lives. The relationships that we have are the greatest opportunity to grow. Now it's easier to think, oh hell, I'd rather be alone and not have to deal with this stuff. But then what about the joyous days when that relationship is so amazing? Okay, I'll take that for that, right? So the relationship that I have had to grow through the most, I'm going to admit something right now. I'm not proud of it, but it's true. It's a true part of my life. This is my 4th marriage. And I didn't feel like it was because I was a failure in 3 other marriages. I felt like we simply did the work that we came to do together. And then it was time to not do the work and it was time to go out and influence other parts of our lives. My parents, on the other hand, have had the, I was going to say opportunity, the joy, the luck, and the burden of having a 53-year marriage. Because it's damn hard, right? Relationships, especially the male-female or the co-creative relationship, whether it's female-female or male-male, whatever it is that we have going on. The idea is that that's our cross point. That's the point where we decide that we're willing to raise our vibration, is through our relationships. So in my relationships, every single one of them are completely divine to me. I have a fantastic relationship with each of my exes. We go on trips together because of that. I only have children with my first husband, but we still share time together with the whole family. There's not any of this yours, mine. You know, now that you've divorced me, you can't talk to my siblings. There's none of that that goes on, because that's not love in my life. That's not love in my interpretation, in my truth. I'm not the only one who has those kind of feelings. And I also know that I may be speaking for someone who says, are you kidding me? My guy was so damn abusive, I wouldn't want to be a friend with him. I honor that too. I do. I just know that the main thing is that we get to learn and grow from our relationships. And the relationship I'm currently in, we're still learning and growing together on a daily, sometimes feels like hourly basis, because we have a tendency to push each other's buttons. We are both firstborn and alpha. Yeah, let me tell you how that goes a lot of days. But he is the love of my life, and I've known him since the 8th grade. So here we are. Okay. That's a good one to go to the next one. I do have, the real part of my talk is to bring to you to the point of ritual. Daily ritual. And the things that I have shown to you right now are some of the tools that I use in my daily ritual. I am a ceremonial witch. And what that means is I have studied the Kabbalah, and I have studied the Tarot, which is all part of the Kabbalah story, and the pathways in between. And with that knowledge and that information that I have also learned Hebrew ceremonies. So each day, when I start my day, I start with about a 30-minute ceremony that connects me to the divine. It connects me to my ancestry, my path. It connects me to who I am and who I want to be. And it brings me into a consciousness. Another tool that I use for my rituals are grids, crystal grids, and altars. I have 4 altars because I have a magical room that I work out of, and I do cord cuttings and shamanic journeys for people, things like that. So inside of my room, not only is it my creation space for my office, but it's also the place where I have an elemental altar, which means that I have an attain to represent fire. I have a wand to represent air. I have an incense and a candle to represent fire. And I have a huge stone to represent earth. And then in the center, I have a giant pentacle. How many of you are aware that the pentacle has a meaning, and it's not the devil meaning? Great. So the symbols on a pentacle, the 5-pointed star encased in a circle, they stand for earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. This is who we are. This is what we are. We live here on Malkuth. Malkuth is earth in the Kabbalah. And Malkuth is the place where manifestation happens. And as we climb the ladder back up to Keter, which is pure divine spirit, the place where pure potential is, it's the nothing before the something. And it's the place we return to as the something back into the nothing. And it's regenerative. It continues. Sometimes the Kabbalah is represented in our lives daily or in a situation. So we're not just talking about climbing this ladder of the Kabbalah one time in your life. Because the Kabbalah, the symbol of the Kabbalah, is in every cell in your body. And sometimes the thing you've been working on the hardest, you started at pure potential, where nothing turned into something. And you crossed the abyss, and you came down to Malkuth, and you brought the physical energy of manifestation to your goal. And then you released it back and returned it back to pure spirit, pure potential. So the idea with the ceremonies and the rituals is that I encourage you to find the tools, find the thing that is about you. Prayer is a ritual. Church is a ritual. Your daily routine in the morning, your journaling, your reading. These things are so important because you take the time for you, at least 30 minutes, to regenerate who you are, to reconnect with the divine, and to become that pure potential that your soul set on a spirit journey and a physical journey to manifest as you travel to Malkuth. So daily ritual. How many here? I feel some that do have a daily ritual already. Right, raise of hands. Wonderful. Is there anybody who here that say daily ritual sucks? Good, because it doesn't. I'm sorry?
It's just hard to get started.
Thank you. It's hard to get started. That's exactly where I was going to next, because much like saying, it's easy to say you're going to do something, but actually taking the action to do it is one little step at a time. That one step that you need is sometimes just to get yourself up 30 minutes earlier and sit quietly with yourself awake and even make a list for the day. Just something. And then you might have this feeling that, ooh, I'm going to add this in. And so you add that and try that a little bit the next day. You are the empowered beings here. You are the masters of your destination, of your journey, of your soul. Be not the slave to the world, because the world will keep you down. It doesn't intend for you to rise. There are many forces out there that intend to keep us stuck. And they keep us stuck by television, by our smartphones that are really so damn dumb sometimes that I just want to scream, right? They are handy, they really are, but they're not who we are. We are this room full of people. We are this building and this city and this state. We are the accumulation of the light coming together and standing in our truth and standing in our power and speaking our words. This is why today I speak about a witch from a place of power. I speak about being a witch and practicing the craft of the wise one. Because it's time for the world to wake up and stop being so damn afraid of who they are and be willing to stand in your responsibility for your life first, and then your minor children and your grandchildren. I have 6. So they're part of it. And then extend it out into the world. And only us coming together to be that light can we actually do that together. So how many in this room want to stay a slave? Raise your hand. You'd like to stay a slave. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your humor. I love that. Then that means the rest of you will raise both hands to becoming the master in your own life. Raise your hands to the divine and feel the energy that comes down through the palms of your hands. Just breathe in 3 deep breaths and allow yourself to connect with the beautiful sky, the earth, all that is, and allow it to run through you as you breathe in deep. Connecting into the heavens, bringing the energy down through your body with the next breath, and sending it down into the earth. And with one last breath, imagine all of your energy just went around the globe, all of us connecting with each other and with others who are looking for our light, because we are looking for the light in others. Thank you so much for your time today. I keep doing this because I can tell I'm not being loud enough. So I hope you could all hear me. And I do have a booth back in the back, and I would love any continued conversations if you have questions about the path or anything like that. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.